Very truly, I tell you, the one who believes in me will also do the works that I do, and in fact will do greater works than these, because I am going to the Father. Are you doing those greater works? In everything you think, say, and do? Aha, caught you on that one, right? Me too. So what's holding us back from stepping into and doing those works that Jesus did, and even greater works? I mean, do we really believe him? Do we really take him at his word that you and I can do the things he did and even greater things? Well, I hope that by the end of today's message you will believe that on a deeper level than ever before. Because the message is intended to support you in clarifying who and what you believe in, taking this statement I just read seriously, and becoming intentional about living and growing into it. So the human condition is believing that Jesus had special dispensation as the only Son of God. I grew up being taught that. And the challenge with that is if he had special dispensation, then what hope is there for you and me? Right? He's able to do something and we aren't. What kind of message would that be for us? And the spiritual solution is taking him at his word regarding our divinity and our potential to do the things he did and even greater things. So what would be in it for you if you were able to truly do the things that Jesus did and even greater things? What would that do for you? Anybody got any ideas you want to share? Yes? Emotional fulfillment, sense of satisfaction, loving connection. What was the last one? Sense of belonging. Yeah. Purpose. Yeah. Isn't that great? I mean, that's just a few of the things. Thank you so much. And certainly we would be living our mission to raise consciousness, right? Raise our own consciousness and call forth the consciousness of other people as well, to transform our lives, to do our part to heal the planet. Abundant prosperity in those ways that were just mentioned. Prosperity in terms of health, wealth, peace, love, joy, wholeness, expansiveness. All that abundance. Also, I have it that what's in for you and me is that we would then inspire others. And people would change as a result of their association with you and with me. Can you imagine people changing just because of their association with us? We would begin living a spirit-led life with faith and clarity. We would experience the kingdom of heaven, which was Jesus' real big message, was the kingdom of heaven. We would experience it as a result of living as he lived and as he modeled. Because we know that heaven, at least we believe in unity, heaven is not a place to get to, but rather an experience to claim. Heaven is not a place to get to, rather it is an experience to claim. It's a state of consciousness. It's a mystical union. It's right here, right now. And also, we would see things differently if we lived and did these things that Jesus did and greater things. And as a result of seeing things different, we would automatically be living differently with a deep sense of, as mentioned, purpose and direction. So I think that's enough reasons that I can think of. Anybody got any others? Yes?
One other thing I just thought of that, Rev, a deep sense of
A deep sense of
feeling good.
feeling good,
about everything.
feeling good about everything.
There's that reciprocity, so that inspiration shares that and receives that.
Yes, yes. It's like, to me, I think of joy. That I say joy is what faith feels like, because joy really means I know that all is well. No matter what it looks like out there, all is well. So the first thing is in this statement, he says, I tell you, the one who believes in me. Well, that could be a button pusher for some of us who have Jesus buttons, right? But what does it mean to believe in me? Well, I think it's about believing in his words and his deeds, his actions. But there's a mythology about Jesus that often binds us rather than frees us. So we have to look at the beliefs that we hold about Jesus. And, my beliefs about Jesus when I grew up in the Free Will Baptist Church in North Carolina are very different than my beliefs about Jesus today. And I won't go into all of that, but I hope that most of us, our beliefs have evolved over the years. So in traditional Christianity, we believe Jesus died for our sins. Bad on us, right? It's about suffering and sacrifice, and that God expects the same from us, right? Jesus suffered and was sacrificed, therefore, if we want to be like him, we've got to suffer and sacrifice. Who wants to sign up for that, I'll take what's behind door number 2 instead, right? In much of traditional Christianity, we're taught to worship Jesus. And in Unity, we're taught to emulate Jesus. That we can do what he did if we believe in him, in what he did, and his words, not as a vicarious atonement that's going to save us from some distant hell after we die, but if we believe in him and do these things he did and greater things, we will get out of the hell we're already in right here on earth, right? We say sometimes, if I can remember the saying, that a lot of religions or Christian churches, or people go there to be saved from, so they won't go to hell. And in Unity is for those people who've already been there, and we want to get out, okay? All right? So a lot of us were disenchanted about what we were taught about Jesus, and therefore we've been unable to reconcile what we heard with what resonates in our hearts. So for many of us, it may be about unlearning before we can learn. So that in Unity, we would call that like a release or a denial. A denial is not a river in Egypt. It's not denying a situation exists, but rather it's like unlearning, letting go, pulling weeds so we can plant flowers, okay? So we deny something the power over us. And so we need to get rid of some of these old beliefs that are holding us back so that we can know God as Jesus knew God, not as an anthropomorphic being out there doing things to us with, in my belief, a little black book that only wrote down what I did wrong. Nobody ever told me he had a white book, but a black book that everything I ever did wrong was written down in. So we want to know Jesus, know God as Jesus knew God, as an immanent and transcendent presence, available to us 24/7, that loves, nourishes, supports us, that is that we are an expression of. And then we want to believe in Jesus' words and Jesus' actions, not so much, believing in him so I'm saved, right? It's about believing in his words and actions so that my life is better as a result of that. And so I believe that we can do this. The sign of a great leader is when the student takes what the teacher has given and uses it to surpass the teacher, right? How many of you have heard that, right? You've heard that before. So that's what he was saying in this verse, that we can do the things he did and even greater things. Because if we don't, then he wasn't a very good teacher, right? So it's up to us to not only do what he did, but surpass it. And we're meant to do even greater things. And how about, Jesus was someone who broke a perceived barrier. And we know that with Roger Bannister and the Wright brothers and example after example, that when someone breaks a perceived barrier, it paves the way for others to do it. So Jesus broke the barrier. The disciples replicated it. They believed in him, his teachings, his words, his actions, and they performed in his name. Again, some of these are such button pushers that we believe in the name and after the nature of Jesus. Okay? And so it's our turn. It's our turn now. Because he left us that challenge. He said to do it. Do it. So we're to live his words and actions. But I think one of the reasons that I have been intimidated about believing this verse is because I think of only the miracles. I got to start with the miracles. If I can't raise the dead and heal the sick and all that, then I just give up. Anybody else? Right? I mean, we aim for that. But this book covers 9 principles that he lived that we have no excuse not to live. And we're going to be going over them in the next over the next 6 weeks or 5 weeks. So the vision, he had a vision. He had faith. He prayed. He was humble. He was a master of forgiveness. He was grateful. He believed in community. He knew how to die. He really showed us how to die in terms of not hanging on a cross, but his attitude, the way he went to his death, and then through service. So he said, anyone who believes in me will do the things I have done and even greater things because I am going to the Father. So to me that means I'm out of here. Okay? I'm out of here. I'm not going to be physically here. So, don't just rest on my laurels, but I'm passing the baton, and it's up to you now to do the work. It's up to you. That was what he was saying, in my opinion. Okay. So what is it that he did? In addition to these practices he did, he had a deep, deep longing to know God. He was truly a mystic. A mystic is someone whose only desire is to know God's presence. Not to intellectually know God, but to have an experience of God. To experience the presence and power that God is. He knew his oneness and his divinity. And he knew that for us as well, that we are all one, that we are all divine. He turned within, to the source of power. He said, it is not I, but the Father within who does the work. Okay? Any healers out there, hopefully any healer worth their salt, right, knows that it is not them as a human being. It is this divine power within us that does the work. He served God for not for personal gain, but he served God in service to humanity. The term in the Bible, they often say, for the glory of God. And what the heck does that mean? Well, it means in service to good. He was an empty vessel through which he allowed God to express. He ministered to people's spiritual needs. That's something every one of us can do. We can minister to people's spiritual needs by being a loving presence to them. People felt loved in his presence. How many people feel loved in your presence other than your grandchildren? You know? How many people just feel better after having been in your presence or my presence? And he loved others, and people were changed by his love. They were changed. We have an opportunity to change others by our love. He also faced his fears and temptations. He did his shadow work. Okay? He did his shadow work. And as a result, he was clear and centered. So he came not to save us from some after-death hellfire and damnation. Rather, he came to direct our attention to our divine essence and to that possibility of us having an experience, a direct experience of God. He saw our potential. You know, when I think of that, I think of when you know, somebody says, "Oh, I met this guy, and blah, 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 and he's got great potential." You know, it's like, dump him now. You know, dump him now. But I don't think that applies with Jesus seeing our potential. Jesus saw our potential. He called it forth. He saw what is possible for each of us. You know, when he healed, he saw beyond the appearance of the human, you know, what the human eyes could see. He saw beyond that physical malady or whatever to the spirit, the divine spirit that is before the body and is after the body. And he saw that, and he called that forth. And that's what in you and me heals. Okay? It is the spirit of the living God, if you will, that is the healer. And he saw it, and he would call it forth in people. He demonstrated that potential. And so if he did it, Roger Bannister broke the 4-minute mile, we can do it. You know, maybe not the 4-minute mile, but we can demonstrate the potential that Jesus saw in us. And he saw that, and he held to it until it was called forth. You know, many of us studied The Gentle Art of Blessings this past fall. And in that book, that's what blessing is. It's holding to the truth of that person until it comes forth. Beyond what they've done to hurt us or upset us or whatever. But seeing beyond that human ego, that human, wounded human, to that divine being that is perfect. And holding that. Can you imagine if everybody treated you like the Christ that you are? And what if you treated everyone like the Christ that they are? And what if I did? Wow. He had a greater understanding of the nature of God, which allowed him to apply natural and spiritual laws in a way that seemed miraculous. And so we don't think we can do them. But it wasn't a miracle as if it was beyond what's possible. Rather, he understood the laws on a deeper level. And so we talk about that in terms of the laws of the third dimension. You know, this is the third dimension that we're living in. The laws of the fourth dimension, or the laws of the third dimension, do not apply at the fourth dimension, the kingdom of heaven. Jesus knew that. So he didn't limit himself with the appearances of the third dimension. So, we have so he was able to perform seeming miracles. And because he saw the possibility where others saw insurmountable odds. So we have the principles. We have the 9 principles that are outlined in this book. And by the way, we have, I think, maybe 5 copies in the bookstore, if anyone's interested. So we have the principles, but now we need to put them to practical use. And how do we do that? How do we put these principles to practical use? Well, we know it's always prayer and meditation, first and foremost. And then I would invite you to contemplate how your life would be different if you knew God as Jesus knew God. And to contemplate, what is Jesus asking you to do that he did? And then to apply what he did to every detail of our lives. That's all. Piece of cake, right? To every detail of our life. And that question, what would Jesus do, is really such a great question to ask. You know, I remember one time I was in the Hamas and there was this huge snake that was in the path in front of me, and I just screamed bloody murder and ran in the opposite direction, and I stopped and said, I don't think Jesus would have done that. So I got work to do. And then we can follow his 2 commandments. You know, in his 2 commandments, we're to love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, with all your strength, and then to love your neighbor as yourself. You know, to see that we are not our brother's keeper, we are our brother, we are our sister. To know our oneness, to see beyond the physical appearance of separation, to know that we truly are one, and to love God and to love our neighbor unconditionally. You know, no strings attached. I remember, I've told this story before, somebody called me one day, and they were a former member, just really beside herself, and she was really upset with God, and she was saying God did this and God did that and whatever. And I said, you know, if I were you, I'd get a new God. You know, and she busted up laughing. Okay, because it's like, you know, we make God in our image, right? In the image of a person that has all these character defects or whatever. So we need to know that we are all one, and whatever we do to another, we do to ourselves. And then for those of you who get the book, there are activities at the end of each chapter that take you beyond the abstract ideas to concrete action. And in unity, that's our 5th principle, right? Where the rubber meets the road. So living the way Jesus lived, doing the things he did, and even greater things, requires discipline, requires dedication. And I couldn't help when I read that in the book to think of Pavarotti, who said, it's not discipline, it's devotion. Devotion. One practice at a time. 1 week at a time for the next 6 weeks, or 5 weeks, counting today. And do what he did, and even greater things. I truly believe that all we would have to take is one thing he did, one principle, and master it. Wow, our whole life would change. So this week, we're going to focus on just knowing this truth. Really knowing this truth. That the things Jesus did, we can do, and even greater things. And let's begin knowing that in a time of sacred prayer and meditation. And so let's take a moment to relax the body, quiet the mind, open the heart. Perhaps do that by just focusing on the breath, just observing it, being the watcher, not trying to change it, just allowing it to settle into its own rhythm and pace. And in this relaxed, centered state, hear these words like you've never heard them before. Very truly, I tell you, the one who believes in me will also do the work that I do. And in fact, will do greater works than these, because I am going to the Father. And now silently repeat these words to yourself as I read them again. Very truly, I tell you, the one who believes in me will also do the works that I do. And in fact, will do greater works than these, because I am going to the Father. Allow these words to roll around in your mind and heart. Very truly, I tell you, the one who believes in me will also do the works that I do. And in fact, will do greater works than these, because I am going to the Father. Feel the words on your tongue as you silently say them. Very truly, I tell you, the one who believes in me will also do the works that I do. And in fact, will do greater works than these, because I am going to the Father. What is your visceral reaction to these words? Very truly, I tell you, the one who believes in me will also do the works that I do. And in fact, will do greater works than these, because I am going to the Father. Do you believe these words? Can you see yourself doing what Jesus did, and even greater things? Do you believe you can? Do you believe I believe you can? Let's believe this together in the silence. As we gently bring our attention back to this time and place, silently say, thank you, divine creator, immanent and transcendent, for the courage to believe I can do what Jesus did, and even greater things. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That it is so, and so it is, and so I am. Amen.